Thank you all for being here today. We appreciate your attendance. For those that don't know me, my name is Alex Caulfield, and I work on the communications and broadcasting departments of Seattle Sounders FC. We're here today to welcome Craig Waibel to his new role, and just a few remarks on Run a Show before we turn things over for opening remarks to Sounders FC owner Adrian Hanauer. We will have a media Q&A once opening remarks have concluded. We do have wireless mics coming around from our staff in the back here as we're live streaming this. So again, those will be coming around for your portion, media, for the Q&A. After that has concluded, we'll have a photo opportunity. And for anybody that needs additional sidebars at the end, that's totally fine. Just see a member of our staff and we'll get everybody squared away. As a final reminder, we do have food and beverage in the other room, and you're welcome to stay, file stories, complete your packages as needed once everything is over. With that said, I'm going to turn things over to Sounders FC owner Adrian Hanauer.
Thanks, Alex, and thank you all for being here. It's another exciting day for us. Talk about the gentleman to my left, Craig Waibel. First, I would like to recognize Garth Lagerwey and the amazing work he did here in Seattle. This club would not be as evolved and successful and have as many trophies without his time here. Had an amazing 8 years working with working with Garth. He will forever be a part of the Sounders history and a super important part of that history. But today we're here to talk about Craig Waibel and his new role. I am super excited to work with Craig. I got to know Garth really well in the time leading up to bringing him in to be the general manager of the team, and I feel like it's put me in a unique position to understand what attributes make someone successful in the role. I've known Craig a long time also, known Craig 20 years plus. Craig has deep roots in this community. He understands our culture. He understands our fans. He understands the people in the organization. He understands our players. And all of that wrapped around kind of a culture piece that is always so important to me. I say this a lot, but organizations win and lose together. It is the sum of the parts. It's not an individual. And something I really appreciate with Craig is he absolutely gets that. He knows that it is going to take everyone in the same boat rowing the same direction for us to continue to have success, win championships, galvanize our club, be that shining beacon for all of North American soccer to admire and aspire to. We have done amazing work here in Seattle, humbly, in my opinion, over the course of 50 years, but certainly our MLS time. And I believe with all my heart that Craig can continue that work and allow us to be even more successful. The next period of time is going to be really exciting in soccer in this community. Obviously, a bunch of you got to watch the end of the World Cup game, the Mexico-Saudi Arabia game. That level of excitement, energy, as we lead up to hosting the World Cup in 2026 is just like enough to make someone so excited about what is in store for us. But we've got lots of milestones along the way. We have an exciting new tournament in our league, in the Leagues Cup coming next year. We have a 50th anniversary coming in 2024. We have the evolution of this building, this facility, into a piece of infrastructure that will help us for the next generations, generations of young players, generations of young people growing up in the organization, growing as individuals, growing as executives, so that they may sit up here well beyond when we're all done, being a steward of the franchise and in a leadership position with this organization as a steward of this franchise, which is really what we think of ourselves as. And then again, not the end of the excitement and lead into a great period of time, but the 2026 World Cup, it is just going to be remarkable in this community and the legacy that we're able to leave behind coming out the other end of the World Cup. So, with that, again, I just have to reiterate how excited I am to work with Craig, his humility, the things that are important to him, leadership, coaching, developing people, giving people responsibility and the tools to do their job well. I have all the confidence in the world that all those attributes will continue to make the Sounders successful for the next bunch of years ahead. So with that, Craig, thank you, welcome, and great to have you on the job.
Appreciate it. Am I next?
You're next.
You're next.
For your opening remarks.
That's pressure. Well, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for the opportunity, not only to yourself, but to the rest of the ownership. A quick thank you to my wife and daughter who are part of this journey of professional sport, which is wildly adventurous, even with a 20-year hiatus at a club. They've moved several times and fulfilled the journey with me. So it's wonderful to be back. It was awesome coming back a year and a half ago. Again, I thank Garth as well. A legacy, a standard that we all understand that Brian and Adrian, Ziggy, Garth have all built over the last several years that is just shy of perfect. They've won every trophy, and so the standard's obvious here, and that's what we intend to live up to. Not only on the field, but off the field. I really do. I embrace the growth of the people around us, the people you guys don't get to see very much of. Hopefully, we make some names in our organization a little more well known in terms of the technical side, and we're gonna do some structuring that I think is really gonna exploit some of the awesome talent that we currently have in our organization, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys shortly in the future. But I truly am humbled. I'm a Northwest kid. I lived on the correct side of the river in southern Washington. I might have been born on the other side, but I lived on the correct side. Grew up in northern Idaho and went to high school in eastern Washington, and I'm a ridiculously proud University of Washington graduate. And you'll see me in UW hoodies at some point, I promise. But I really do. This adventure in sport, when I entered in the MLS, I was coming back to play for Brian on loan from the Galaxy and getting to know Adrian and Brian 22 years ago, something along those lines. I try to lose when I get over 2 decades. I try to forget. But what an awesome day. A club that I've known my entire life, and an unbelievable opportunity to come in here and share this opportunity and this leadership. And I look forward to really embracing all of it. And in general, I get to sit behind all of you and listen to your questions to Brian. So it'll be really interesting today to sit in the front.
Thanks, Craig. So I'll tell you the story about, what was it, Indiana from Cincinnati,
Yeah, it
the
was.
bus trip,
Yeah.
or wherever that was. I'll tell you guys that story off the record. But that story brings up his character. I think Craig's character back then, he was coming from an MLS team, coming down to help a USL program and leadership. He was one of the guys, but you could tell, he was an MLS guy and he was good and he was confident, quiet confident. So I appreciated that as a young USL coach. So thank you for that. And now as we see his career progressing, as I've watched the last year and a half of him interacting with my staff, with people in the organization, he's a really tremendous people person. And that's what I appreciate. And so I'm looking forward to an opportunity to do good things. I think you said it well. I think Adrian Zig started the club off in a very good fashion. I, tip my hat to Zig a lot of times. Garth came here and did a good job. We've all done a good job. This organization is set up through the efforts of many, many people, you guys included, to be successful. And we are just gonna share in our commitment to work together to try and keep that standard high and continue to win games and work in unison with all of the people in the organization to make sure that we can rise to the opportunity of the 50 years and also, of course, what Adrian touched on, the World Cup, which it's just gonna be massive. So thank you.
With opening remarks concluded, we'll turn it over to you all in the media gallery down here. If you have a question, as always, just raise your hand. I saw, John, I saw you first. We're gonna bring the mic around for you. Yep.
As you take over the position here, what do you see as the primary challenge facing the club in 2023, and how do you plan to attack that challenge?
Yeah, I actually, sometimes changes are made because other people get amazing opportunities, not necessarily because something's broken. And I think that's the situation we're in. Garth got an amazing opportunity and it was the right thing for him and his family. So I don't think there's any glaring holes, personally. Now, I am a little bit biased because I've been part of the project for a year and a half, and I acknowledge that. But I don't think drastic change is something we're looking at. We are definitely pursuing a couple of players at the moment to fulfill and fill in the roster spots that we think are the most in need, not only from a depth perspective, but for the coaches to have more choices on how to attack an opponent or how to adjust in game. And those are pretty complex conversations at times in terms of tactical understanding of how we want to go about it. But it's now my turn to sit in the key chair and listen and figure out exactly how this staff want to attack games and the adjustments they want to be able to make. And so I think in terms of addressing what we need in the short term, I think we need to believe in what we have. This group won the Champions League last year. And I think we were a little unfortunate with some injuries throughout the year to some key components of our group. But this is a darn good group. And it's one that I firmly believe in. And I think in the short run, if we can strengthen it without overhauling it, it's probably the best approach.
We'll stay here, Maz, and then Jeff.
Without comparing, what are you going to bring in that technical chair, given your unique experiences?
It's a great open-ended question, Maz. I can take that anywhere. Yeah, no, I appreciate the softball. No, look, I have run a club. I've made a lot of difficult decisions in the past. I think the difficult decisions are far more rare than the everyday decision. And I think continuation in this club, in the belief of what's been established prior to my taking on these responsibilities. There's been a great focus on this club the last 5 to 7 years about the youth and the development and the players that are coming through. And our coaches have embraced a lot of that. And they've embraced those players. So I think continuing some of the main themes, but also acknowledging that MLS is rapidly changing and investment is rapidly changing and structure and a team and belief in a system and something we saw, yes, we had an adverse year last year, but one thing we definitely saw across the league was teams with a clear structure that you knew what to expect every week did quite well last year. And that's something that we're gonna work to define, and Brian and I and the staff have met repeatedly already about really having a very clear expectation for our fans. What do the fans expect to see when they walk in the stadium? And there were times last year where I know we spoke after games where we said, man, that wasn't anything what we thought we were going to see. Not for the good reasons, but for the wrong reasons. And that's what we attack. We attack consistency. We attack the pursuit of perfection. And that's kind of I think Brian and I share the same stubbornness in our view of that. Like we both pursue perfection with the idea that it's quite unattainable. But that doesn't deter us from that vision. So really adding that definition, that structure, the everyday experience for our players and for our staff to come in with an optimism, with hey, what happened yesterday doesn't define us, good or bad, never too high, never too low, but at the same time, last year challenged us in many ways. And we need to walk back in the door this year and redefine not only to ourselves, but to our players that it was an anomaly. And we need to get right back to excellence.
Okay, we'll go to Jeff.
Hi, Craig. You obviously have a very, very good experience of running a Major League Soccer franchise, but Garth Lagerwey also did. He ran multiple franchises, was very successful, came from a pretty unique legal background. I'm wondering what some of the things might be that you were able to pick up from him in the couple of seasons that you spent working alongside of him that maybe you didn't have in your first go-around with Real Salt Lake and that you might be able to apply going forward.
My dad and I always joke about public speaking, and we say, you never want to follow the best public speaker because you're going to stand out for the wrong reasons. Garth is the best. It's fun for myself and for everyone else in the league that he's no longer in this role, because now we can actually have another conversation that doesn't involve just his name. With that said, he's a mentor, he's a good friend, and I've learned a lot from him over the last 18 months, specifically on the way he interprets situation, the way he pursues players, the way he encourages staff, the way he communicates with player representatives and the likes, and also strategically how to build a roster and how to spend money on a roster effectively, and which positions do you have TAM players and designated players, and all of these buckets that players fall in with titles in our league. And so just getting to spend that 18 months with him on a daily basis and hearing his ideas and getting honestly to discuss it with him and on days argue about our viewpoints and walk away with it just in a lot of respect for one another has taught me a lot. In terms of my previous experience to the Sounders, I think the league evolves so quickly. It's genuinely hard to go back 4, 5, 6 years and apply that to today. We're a growing league, we're a growing business, but we're also an aggressively growing soccer culture in America. And the expectations, thankfully, from you guys increase every year. And I think that keeps a healthy pressure on Brian. I think it'll keep a healthy pressure on myself. I know Adrian has felt that healthy pressure for quite a while too as an owner. So I think when I sit back and I digest experience, it's an interesting thing because I could rely on that to give you a bunch of canned answers as to what I think it'll help me improve upon or anything else. What it's actually, in my world, good for is reflection. And I can reflect and I can ask friends. I have many friends in this industry that are brutally honest, and I'm able to ask them, what do I need to get better at? What do you think I'm better at? What do you think I need to improve upon? And that's, I think, where the greater part of the growth comes from is being able to make mistakes and not fear the failure. In our world, I think a good season, we win half our games, and a great season, we win just a little bit more. So if you can imagine being impressed by being good at your job half the time, or at least that's the interpretation. We live in an interesting world where our performance comes down to a very minute space of time throughout a calendar year to judge ourselves against. So every day we will pursue good players. We're interested in opening our searches up to new parts of the world, new cultures, bringing in more players from other cultures, and really making this club more of what we say we are, which is diverse and accepting. And if we can bring in the domestic talent that we've always maintained, as well as add to it, that'll be a great experience for all of us. And that's where I think my experience will come in handy. I brought a lot of international players into the league when I was at Salt Lake. I think we were able to focus on young domestic talent when I was in Salt Lake, but here I think we have a really strong brand. And I think our brand speaks for itself. And I think we attract a lot of players. And I think not missing on good opportunities is going to be the key in the short run.
Okay, we'll come over to this side of the room, beginning with Jeremiah.
Yeah, when you were at RSL, you oversaw a period of a lot of change. There was, the academy moved from Arizona. You guys were building a training facility. Then you had all this other stuff that was going on outside of the field. What did you learn from all that, and how does that sort of inform you going forward?
And what I learned is none of this is easy. From when I went to Salt Lake, I was an assistant coach working for Jamie Clark at the University of Washington, and I was hired as an assistant at Salt Lake. And, I think we all interpret the next person's job a little bit easier than it might be. And I certainly did. But going into that position, and with the transition of the academy specifically, these are fundamental changes that you can look at a million ways. We all have a job to do. No one's life is perfect, and sometimes there's difficult decisions that go in to try and get to the right end. And in those transitions, you can build upon them, or you can run away from them. And frankly, what I learned in that situation was by integrating the youth of our organization back into a daily interaction with our professional players and our top level coaches was a remarkable thing from an organizational standpoint. I know Adrian touched on earlier. I believe in organizations. I believe top to bottom. I believe bottom to top. And I believe that we all need to be communicating. And I don't believe in the separation of levels. It doesn't mean that coach is going to be required to know the name of every single player within our youth structure. He might not even get to see all of them in a calendar year with how crazy the world's been, but we all need to be supportive structurally. And I think the biggest lesson that I took from my experience at Salt Lake is that no day is the same, no year is the same, and in sports, it can change on a dime. And we saw it yesterday with the U.S., Pulisic injury, and you have to adjust. And I think you can only learn some things when you're in the middle of it. And this is a job that a lot of times we learn when we get in the middle of those situations. So hopefully, Brian and I don't have a lot of problems to solve or unforeseen activity this year. But we got through quite a bit of it last year with some success, and we'll right the ship.
Come over to Aaron Levine here. Matt has a mic for you, Aaron.
Thanks a lot. Congratulations, Craig.
Thank you.
Sort of piggybacking off of your last answer, the power dynamics between a general manager and a coach is different all over the country, depending on what sport and what franchise you're talking about. How do you view the power dynamic and power structure here in terms of decision-making between yourself and Brian?
I think both of us are just power-thirsty humans. I know for me that I go to sleep every night thinking, how do I wake up tomorrow and establish dominance over the world? Look, this is about a unifying vision, and it's not rainbows and unicorns, and it's not perfect, but we have to disagree. If we agree every day, it means one of us isn't doing our job, and so there will be disagreements. There will be judgment on my performance from him, and there'll be judgment on his performance from me, and those will be conversations we'll have. But I know it's both of our preference that we have those conversations with each other and with Adrian. And then we open the door and we walk out and we fight on behalf of the badge. And the badge represents so much more than us. Like I said before, I've been gone 20 years. Turns out the club's still here. They've done all right without me, you know? So I think humility is an important thing for both of us. And I hope that power is not really a word that we express or desire. And I don't think either one of us enter into this with that as a goal, you know? We both fully understand, being Northwest guys, that this club's gonna be here a long time, a long time.
Okay, we'll come back over to this side. Yeah, Jeremiah, go ahead, and since you're there, and then we'll go to Dave and Jackson back down to you. Thanks for waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Yeah, Adrian, if you could just speak to us a little bit about the process of hiring Craig and whether or not there was like a formal interview process, or if this was just a matter of a promotion, or yeah, just kind of give us how that works.
Yeah. So, you know, the timing of this was somewhat complicated. Again, backing up a little bit, you know, Garth and I started sitting down talking 6 months ago about what the future would hold, and obviously we had a annual business meeting not long ago where Garth received a large amount of support, 90% support. But in my mind, that support, obviously Garth did great work, but to me that is organizational support. That is a 90% vote of confidence in the direction in which we're going. In my mind, my relationship with Waibel over the years, and certainly the last 18 months, there was no better candidate. We certainly talked to the league about the process. There are certain DEI processes that the league promotes that we are super supportive of organizationally. And so we consulted with the league, and the league is very supportive of internal candidates who have earned their chance to be promoted. And so, you know, I won't get into whether we did a bunch of interviews or did not, but from day one, when I, you know, thought that there might be a possibility that Garth could move on, my first choice was the gentleman sitting to my left.
Okay, Dave, we'll come over to you.
Craig, this is probably a hard question to answer just because development takes time. But how in the short term do you, Brian, Henry Browner, Wade Weber look to improve the connection, say, between Defiance, first team, to get kind of those players that are in that, if you were to rank them, that 18 to 30-ish range in quality, more experience, more challenges? How do you do that in the short term? And not, obviously the long term is we're gonna see those impacts in years, but how do you make changes in 6 or 12 months to kind of get more of those players time?
I think one of the things Brian and I wholeheartedly agree on is that players ultimately define their opportunities. And I think that's important to acknowledge, because in our process of trying to promote young players and integrate them into the top level, we need to see them perform at a high level at the Defiance. We need to give them opportunities within the first team when they're deserved and when they're earned. You know, I'm not the guy that walks in and tells Brian or the staff who to choose. That's not my job. You know, we look at a bigger vision, and one of our bigger visions is the integration of some of these young talented players. And we saw some of it last year. You know, Obed's injury obviously cut his experience short, but we got to see Josh and Danny and Leo and Reed, Baker, Whiting, even, you know, we get to see some of these young guys make debuts, getting games. Ethan is another player that pops to mind, who at the beginning, the player that walked in the locker room at the beginning of the year versus the end of the year. You know, this was an evolution of a young man that convinced the staff over time to choose him. And I think we just need to continue in our belief that it will work. We need to continue in our belief that these young men will develop, and we need to give them the opportunities to develop. And I think one of the hardest parts of our job is, we're on display 2 hours a week, but it's the other days that go into the decisions. And I assure you that our staff has never selected a player for anything aesthetic or cosmetic or any business purpose. They select players based on trying to win games. And that's on behalf of the organization, on behalf of the fan base. And I know that's something we both wholeheartedly agree, that's the approach. And so these young men will be treated the right way. They'll be treated as equal, and they'll be given the opportunities on a daily basis to earn the minutes. And yeah, it'll be my job to make sure that that's not being overlooked in pressure-filled moments, and maybe sometimes the coaches are under a little more pressure because of results than others. It'll be my role and my responsibility to communicate with Brian and with the staff on a daily basis that, that can't alter the way we go about our job. Emotion drives a lot of decisions. There's a lot of subjectivity in what we do, and I think it's important to acknowledge that you and I will watch every game, and we will see it differently, regardless of the result or the way it comes out. And that might be good by me and bad by you, or bad by you and good by we don't know until it's interpreted. But this is a really difficult job that these coaches have. They're tasked with interpreting subjectively as best they can how to get that result. And it's my job to remind them what our core values are driving that train. And so that's where we need to start, is we need to make sure we all have a great understanding of the 5 to 10 really firm beliefs that are driving our decisions, and then kind of bounce all of our decisions when we evaluate them, come back to those pillars and make sure we made them the right way. And we will get some wrong, I promise. But we'll address it, and we'll take it head on, and we'll get them right.
We'll go Jackson, Felipe, then Nico. Go ahead, Jackson.
Yeah, for Adrian and for Brian, Craig's promotion would seem to mean the opening of the sporting director spot. So can you talk about the process for that position, and then who you would want, what type of a person you would want to see in that sporting director position?
Well, I'll address that by saying you chose the 2 wrong people to address that. I'll let Craig take that.
No, go ahead. Go for it, Brian. We're working on the structure. Like I said, we're looking at a lot of the people we have and really looking at the talent that's in-house right now, and making sure we're going to expand roles that fit, and making sure that we're going to take advantage of the talent we have. We will look outside the organization once we've established exactly what we need, but we don't feel an extreme rush to run out and fill any position, any particular title. You guys will figure out over time, I'm not a huge title person. I'm a roles and responsibilities and let's get the job done person. So we'll take a look at everyone's strengths. We've got some very, very talented people that I would like to see take some big steps forward in their responsibilities. And then from there, we'll figure out exactly what we need once we get those defined.
Felipe.
Congratulations, Craig, on your new position. My question to you is, during Garth's tenure, the bar of success was grew, and there is room for growth. But what was that make you say yes to Adrian to become the general manager of organization that strives every day to be the best in the MLS?
Under promise, over deliver. No, I am not the type of, I'm not good at self-promotion. It's never been a strength of mine. I'm more of a person that likes to put my head down and I try to let my work speak for itself. I would rather earn someone's respect quietly than tell them why they need to respect me. And I think this environment that I was brought into with Garth and Brian and Adrian, I was allowed to do that. I was allowed to fulfill a lot of roles underneath the spotlight and the cameras and the microphones. And I think for me, it was important to come in and just do my job. I've always been that way. I think when I would come on loan and play for Brian, when I went through my MLS career, I've never been the superstar. I was never that person on a team. I don't feel I need to be. I just want to be part of the team. I want to be part of a championship. And I think culturally that fits here. And I think that the elevation of the people around us, whether it be on an org chart under, those types of things, they're not relevant to me. What's important is good people doing a job on behalf of the community, which is what we represent. And there's lip service and then there's real words, and I sincerely mean this is on behalf of the fans, because I will be a fan one day. That's the existence of a general manager. I'll become a fan of the Sounders as I always have been. I brought my daughters to games when I was coaching at Washington when she was 2 and 3, and now she has a little bit different experience coming and seeing this. And by the way, Jocelyn, if you've sweet talked your teacher out of class to watch this, I appreciate it and I love you, but get back to school.
Nico Moreno.
Thank you. Questions for Adrian, and I'll do a quick one for Brian. Adrian, I just wanted to ask you, with Chris Henderson gone and Garth gone, that's two big faces and big pillars of the success of this franchise. What makes you confident about Craig, or everything that's behind the scenes that is going to be able to keep this franchise as successful as it has been? And then Brian, very briefly, obviously 2 big tournaments right off the bat this year. With the Club World Cup and, well, not necessarily immediately, but with the new Leagues Cup. Could this be a distraction? Is there any thought, you know this locker room better than anybody, is there any thought in your mind that this could create some uncertainty between players, anything of that nature?
Sure, I'll go. Look, the nature of our business is that great people move on. Whether it's players, coaches, managers, people in the equipment room, people on the medical staff, trainer, and on the business side. I could put the list together as well. I will move on. Craig will move on. Brian will move on. But it is it's the people and the culture and back to, to Aaron's question about power dynamic. Our jobs as leaders, owners, leaders of the organization is to create a shared set of values, vision, and strategic objectives, which are certainly discussed, but at some level are non-negotiable. And that is the way we live our organization. And that eliminates a lot of power dynamic, and it hopefully codifies and systematizes success. It's not easy, it's evolving. You always have to be a step ahead, changing, thinking, being innovative. But if we do our jobs right as leaders, then the void will be filled by other great people who will carry on the legacy that's existed now for 50-ish years. So we're very confident that much success lies in front of us.
The club, if I can just add on to that, the club is not just one person, it's a bunch of people that have done a great job. I can answer your question. There is no distraction. Craig was here for 18 months. The players all know him. He's been in the locker room on multiple occasions. We get along. There are no power dynamics. We're a working relationship. I lost Jimmy Traore as a coach, Ante Razov, who's now an MLS Cup winner. We lost Gonzo. And the team has continued their success. I view last year as a success. Champions League was a massive deal. And so whatever the learning curve we had towards the end of the year, we talked about it. We've already discussed it internally as a staff, with Craig, without Craig. And so the continuity, the humility, the working together, all of that's already happening. and it will not be a distraction for what will hopefully be a tremendous year. And I'm looking forward to working with Craig to try and get us to where we need to be.
Absolutely.
Go to the back here to our friends from King 5.
For Craig or Brian, on the subject of the Club World Cup, to my knowledge, there's still not been a date announced for that. What have your conversations been like recently about when that's taking place and the challenge of not knowing exactly when and getting the players ready for that?
Go for it, Brian.
Well, there is no news on where the tournament is going to be held, when the actual dates are. Craig does not know anything. I don't know if Adrian does. I think we're all still in limbo, which creates a lot of problems for Grant Clark. How do we plan preseason? What do we do? So that is just something that we're keen on trying to find out exact dates, and then we'll plan from there.
I don't want to brag or make people jealous, but I'll land in Doha on Saturday, and I will find someone from FIFA and corner them and see if we can get some answers. So, again, we have heard early February, decision coming, location, but yeah, it's causing some challenges, but as always, we try to run towards burning buildings and solve problems, and we will figure this one out too.
We're preparing for it. That's what we do know. So we'll see. We'll find out when we find out. Maybe after you guys. Maybe we'll find out from you guys.
Grant Clark would love that. He's in the back if you have any information. I think everyone's asked first-time questions, so we may have a couple follow-ups here. We'll start with Jeremiah.
Yep. Brian, I assume you never had a former player now essentially as your boss. How does that change how does that affect the dynamics of having a former player, but also someone that comes from the coaching ranks and has not necessarily sat in your position, but done similar things in their career?
I think that's a benefit and a bonus. I think Craig, the way he views things is not exactly the same as I, but certainly there's enough similarities there. Hate to lose type of guys. That's an agreement. But youth development, you brought it up, Dave. I mean, how do we see that? Maybe there's some differences there. There are some room for improvement there, and so we will work on all those things. What I appreciate about Craig is his honesty. He tells you like it is, and that to me is important. So as long as we continue to be honest with each other and work together in a respectful fashion, there's not going to be any issues. I actually enjoyed my time. I told that story, but when Craig came down, sometimes that's hard for MLS players at that time to come down. Did they think they were better than the players that we had on our USL team? That wasn't the case with Craig. Brian Ching was another example. He came down and played for us and did a really good job and skyrocketed his career. Sorry I didn't do the same for you.
Yeah.
But
0 national team appearances for me.
But you get my point. So if you're a good human being, good person, usually you can break bread, you can have conversations, you can work with them, and that's Craig and I's relationship.
Go over to Dave if you still have. Do you have a follow-up? No. Jackson did. Sorry. Apologies there. Jackson, mic is yours.
Craig, you've said a couple times about elevating people in the organization and bring more light to the people who behind the scenes. Specifically, are there people in mind right now that you jump to say we need to make sure that X or Y or Z become household names because they're so integral to what we do here?
Sure. Good question. That's a good one to put me on a camera with. Look, I mean, Sean Henderson, Corey Sensor, Henry Bronner, Steve Cook, these are guys these are names that you've probably heard, but you don't understand what they do. And the idea is not to keep any of them doing exactly what they're doing. The idea is to challenge them to do more. And I am the type of person that, I don't, Garth always jokes, and he's right, that a general manager is a mile wide and an inch deep. Like, you can't cover everything. You need to delegate. And I think there's some strategic places we can go about that. Those are 4 names that pop to mind right now. Brian and I have discussed in depth a lot of what the expectations could be for several of those guys, but there's more names that people haven't heard or haven't heard enough, and there's heavy influence, and sometimes it's just a bandwidth, issue. But I promise my goal is that they spend more time on this hot mic than I do.
We'll come back to you, Maz. I promise. We're going to go first-time question over here.
Craig, congratulations on the new position.
Thank you.
And you mentioned about the strong brand of Seattle Sounders. Coming from Brazil, I am hearing now that, after the CONCACAF Champions League, we are hearing people talk about Sounders in other countries. I'd like to ask if there is any plan to expand the presence internationally, kind of other places.
I think that's a good one for Adrian to speak about our global presence. In terms of performance, Brian and I are really interested in having more people talk about us. It's pretty good for me and for Brian when a lot of players know who we are, when cultures know who we are. From a global brand, I think Adrian touched on this earlier, we do want to lead on the field in terms of North America, but it's not just on the field, it's off the field. We want our brand to be more than just the football. It is part of our culture. It's ingrained in the Northwest. Everybody knows who the Sounders are. And now we're starting to have everybody know around the world, and it certainly opens up a lot more conversations in terms of our scouting, our recruiting, when we talk to player representatives, when we talk to players themselves, when they realize we're playing in the Club World Cup, these opportunities are enormous in terms of a brand. And so I think from a global soccer perspective, we want to represent ourselves in a way that commands respect on the field. And off the field, we want to continue to define and evolve who we are and what we stand for, and really challenge the norms of evolution in terms of sport and what it stands for off the field. So we're a relatively ambitious group, and I think most of us don't like to flinch when we get challenged on those things. We'll just keep pushing against the brick wall until it falls over.
All right, we'll go last couple just so we can get to the photo op here. Maz and then Dave. Mike's coming for you, Maz, from Kevin.
Craig, since we're friends here, you talked about you were in discussion with some players. Are any of them in the final round of 16 in the World Cup? I didn't think.
Currently, not yet.
On a serious note, the real question I thought I'd get from you is just the challenge now of MLS landscape, right? There's this youth movement. And speaking of the World Cup, one of the greatest players ever is going to come play. Just what are you present to? Yeah, I can't remember what his name is, but yeah, I mean, the challenge you're now facing, and I guess Adrian could answer this as well, but the challenge this league is now facing, and you got a new TV deal with Apple. Mm-hmm. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the exposure is a wonderful thing. We want it. We've been fighting for it since I played in the league in stadiums with 3,000 people. We've been building this, all of us, for so long, and exposure is a wonderful thing. The pressure is something we invite. That drives us. That's why we get up every day. No day is the same, and that's exciting for us. In terms of the evolution of our league, I look at it less as a youth movement. I look at it less as we are attracting top talent from around the world. Not only older talent, but we're attracting younger talent. We're attracting all types of players to our league now. And the challenge for us over the next several years is to play such a brand of soccer at a high enough level that we really continue to pursue the accomplishments that MLS set out to do. And it's not to be a league people talk about after dinner. It's to be the main topic at dinner. And that requires all of us to have more courage in terms of the way we evolve and the way we develop and the way we participate in the world of soccer. We must become a league that sells top talent unafraid to watch them go be successful somewhere else, to watch them go be successful in a Premier League environment or in a Bundesliga environment, because we are also on the verge of bringing Bundesliga players into our league. We're an attractive league. And I think 2026, building into this World Cup, is going to do nothing but help our brand. And we have a responsibility to help build this brand of soccer over the next couple of years so that we're in a prime position when you ask me that question in 26, if we're pursuing players in the round of 16, the answer is yes, multiple, not just maybe one.
Okay, before photo opportunity, we'll close with Dave Clark.
Over the past 2.5 years, there's been some reasons why you couldn't scout internationally as effectively. Is there a region like soccer culture that you want to explore a little more aggressively now that that's a bit easier and now that you're in a role with a little more direct influence?
Yeah, I don't know if this club, and you guys can correct me, I don't know if the club's ever been influenced to scout one part of the world more than another for any other reason, perhaps than financial needs. You know, a lot of times finance drives decisions, and we can dream all we want, but finances are a real thing. It turns out people care about money. It turns out players understand their value. So oftentimes we're directed by our budgets and into certain environments and cultures. And we are expanding. Currently, we're already looking in a couple of countries that I don't think players have come from prior in terms of the Sounders. And I think we'll continue to. One of the wonderful things about technology is the world's at our fingertips. We can sit at our desk and watch second, third division games from almost any country in the world at this point. So in terms of discovering those players, when you have an infinite number of hours of that, the trade-off is that same database that exposes all these players to us doesn't narrow it down for us. So that's where guys like Tyler Cox in our analytics department are essential moving forward, so that we can take all of these pieces of exposure and all of these players we have the ability to see and narrow it down so that we're spending our time in the right places. But, you know, we are actively pursuing a couple of players that are from regions that, you know, to date haven't been typical places the Sounders have brought players in. And that's at the same time we're still in the countries that we know players translate well, both on the field and culturally.
Okay, at this time, we're going to ask our press conference participants to stand. We'll clear the table and present for a photo opportunity. Corky Troon is going to help stage both the TV ENGs and still photographers. You can actually hand it to him if you like. Grab the placards too for me. Thanks, Greg. Thank you. Yep. Kev, be the one on the end grab too. Yep, and the chairs if you don't mind. Thank you. Okay. You guys want to hold them out straight up? Yep. Perfect. Corky, height. Okay. Smell is good. Everybody good? Okay.